Hello, everyone. We wanted to welcome you to Covenant Calendar
Hello.
Club and want to give you a very warm welcome. Everyone, let's give them a warm welcome saying,
Hello.
hello, shalom, everyone. Shalom. This evening,
Shalom.
Charlene is going to be presenting us with a revelation that's been revealed to her, or at least a huge, joyful question that she's been given to investigate this past week. It's going to be shorter than most of our presentations, but we are glad that you're here to observe it with us. And so with that, I'm going to switch the mic over to Charlene. And Charlene, if you want to share your screen, we're eager to see it.
Okay. Okay, everyone, as we get ready for this. This is going to be a review, a little bit of a review, but it will also have some new material in it. And it's really, really hard to put a presentation together that doesn't have something new, so that we hope that you'll enjoy this tonight. I'm going to be presenting it, and I have asked Tim to pop in whenever he feels like there's something he wants to share. He's been extremely busy this week, and he hasn't had a lot of time. So we'll just get started on this. First of all, I would like to say, along with Tim, that we really want each and every one of you to learn how to share this. When you start sharing calendar, what you've learned with other people, that's when you really begin to understand how this works. And you'll come across things that, shoot, I don't remember what Tim and Charlene said, but you know what, we're just an email away, and whoever you're talking to, just tell them, you know what, I know there's an answer, but I got to go find out what it is. I can't remember. And that always leaves the door open so that you can say, I'm going to come back in a couple of days as soon as I hear, because I'm just learning too. And that is a really good way to learn. That's how we've learned. Anyway, we've been talking about Yahuah's calendar for quite a bit, and we just want to do just a few slides here on what is the importance of Yahuah's calendar. And Mario, maybe you can just let me know if my audio is not coming across well with the animation of the slides, and I'll try to figure out how to do it so everybody enjoys the presentation. I only listed a couple of points, and the first one today is that the scriptures speak of the bridegroom and his bride, and certainly the bride will know the bridegroom's calendar. We're not almost sure, we know it exactly for sure. There is a special date, it's the wedding, and it's an important date to save. And Yahuah's covenant calendar is going to mark out not only the wedding date, but it will mark out his divine worship statutes so that his people can meet with him on his designated time. Of course, if we're on a different calendar, he meets with us anyway, because he just loves it when we come together to be with him. Another point for Yahuah's calendar, or another mandate, is that Yahuah's calendar will also mark out prophetic end-time events so that his people can know where they are in the stream of time as the events in Revelation unfolds. And of course, I think most of us know that feasts and festivals are very, very strong markers in the book of Revelation to let us know what is happening when. So the question is it false or is it true when you come across a calendar, and there's lots of them out there? They can't all be true, and they could, a lot of them, be false, but there has to be one true if there's counterfeits. So studying Yahuah's covenant calendar is also going to provide skills for the bride, or for anybody studying the calendar, to detect any counterfeit calendars that offer challenges. So we're not going to be spending any time on studying counterfeit calendars. There isn't enough time. But we know that there's errors out there because we've been involved in them ourselves. And as we're studying the true calendar, then we can actually expose the errors that come in with any counterfeit calendars. And I say that Yahuah's covenant calendar will always have the last word with plenty of witnesses. We've been seeing that through the book of Joshua and even with David and Jonathan last week. I'd just like you to remember that covenant calendar is a riddle, a puzzle, and a secret until it's revealed. And just remember that calendar has got a lot of math to it. And when you were doing grade 1 math long time ago, you were laying the foundation to someday do algebra and trigonometry and calculus. And those were secret subjects on those days in kindergarten and grade 1. That's the way calendar is. There's some puzzles and secrets. Okay, there's lots of secrets in the scriptures, and it's for us to search them out. I like this verse in Luke 8:17. For whatever is hidden shall be revealed, and whatever is secret shall be known and come to light. And there's also some other references there that you can check out, but when you start looking about secrets in the scriptures, you're going to find all kinds of things. There are secrets, and they're for us to find out. The second thing I'd like you to remember is that we need to pay attention to clues in the calendar language. And once you start understanding there's calendar language, you will see it when you read the scriptures. Now, these clues might be found in very unsuspected recorded events, yet they're very highly interesting places. And we found out last week that little story about David and Jonathan and angry King Saul is just a simple story in the scriptures, but it had some really important calendar facts. So all of those stories in the Old Testament, they're there for a reason. They're not just there to be a fun story to read. They're there for a reason. They have lots of good information for all of us to be searching out. Now, we're just so happy to be able to meet all of the covenant calendar students. And one of the regular covenant calendar attendees made a special mention to us, Tim and I, about 4 or 5 or 6 weeks ago, about Genesis 8:14. That seems to be lending a huge clue to breaking open the calendar study even more than we expected. So just wanted to remind you, this is a group study, and as each of you ponder this information, your input is valuable and it's very, very welcome, because Yahuah drops his gems of truth with it, whoever is going to protect it and share it. So let's get started with this super interesting review, which one day I think will be part of the calendar study. And what I'd like to say tonight is that we are only just breaking open a little nugget. We have not finished this study. But here is question number 1. It is about Noah. Would Yahuah place calendar clues in Noah's flood account for any special reason? And what I did this week, and you can see the screen here, I went through chapters 7 and 8 in Genesis, and I was looking for calendar clues. I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but there's 11 of them that I found. There could be more, but I picked out these 11 to start with, and we're definitely not going to look at all of them today. But this very last one is the one from Genesis 8:14, and this is actually the time that Noah is leaving the ark. So I want to pop into just this one particular verse in this presentation, but we won't come to it until the very end. So this is the brand new information. And question number 2 is about Yahusha. Would Yahuah place calendar clues in the scriptures to allow the discovery of Yahusha's 70-week ministry, locking down important dates like from water to fire in 70 weeks? Now, we have not done this study with you yet. We don't even have it prepared. We know what it is. But do you think that there's calendar clues that are going to lock down Yahusha's ministry? And if you could do that, do you think you could build a calendar around his life that would really, really have a lot of those markers that would show the counterfeits where they really are a problem. So this is where we're going to start with our short review today and some brand new material. The first thing, we're going to look at Genesis 1 verse 2 specifically, and the earth was. The word was is 1961. This is a little bit of new information here, just for thought. The second thing that we're going to do is a comparison of first fruits placement between the true calendars of Moses and Joshua, Yahuah, and then we're going to look at the counterfeit calendars of lunisolar and Enoch. So there's a lot of calendars here today. The third thing that we're going to review is the Lag Ba Omar, and I'm sure I've just destroyed that, that Hebrew there, how it is married to first fruits of Abib 16 every single year, and how this particular overcount is always number 33. We're going to do just a tiny review on that. And then the fourth part is we will compare the Omer 33 to the correct count for the 40th day of the Omer count as it connects to Genesis 8:14. And in that verse, it talks about the second month and the 27th day, and that is in the second year of Noah in the flood. It's his 601st year, not the 600th. And that's brand new material. So we'll start off with the Genesis 1. But there is one announcement before I go any further. We're going to be examining one hermeneutic principle. I think I have about 5 or 6 slides here, but it is new material, so I'd like you to pay attention. And this is for you to massage, and we won't be doing a lot of feedback on it. Tonight you can if you wish, but just for things to think about. This section is going to present an option for understanding why the translators of the King James Version chose the word was over other choices when you come to Genesis 1 verse 2. So everyone is responsible for their own understanding of what I'm showing here. Anyway, could there really be a connection between sacred name and the word was in Genesis 1:2, and don't forget, it's Hebrew 1961. The very first time the word was is used in the scriptures is in this verse, the second verse in the scriptures. And it can cause a lot of confusion for the proper understanding of the context, and we're always looking at context. And we did talk about a hermeneutic principle that goes like this. The first word usage in the scriptures takes the first dictionary definition. And that does not seem to hold true for this word was this time. And I'm going to explain that. We'll find out, we'll test this tonight. We'll test it and see if it's true. Why does the word was have to take another definition to fit the proper context of verse 2? This is a question. And the word number is 1961. You can see it there in the scripture. It's Haya or Haya, however you say it. Anyway, what happened to me was I was searching out the name, sacred name to teach to the Bible study class that I'm doing here on Sabbath. And because I'm using Yahuah, and I'm not using the word Jesus, I thought I should explain to the ladies group, how this works. So I started out on a little study with the word Jesus in Matthew 1:21, and something very interesting happened. So here's the question. Is it possible that Haya, H1961, has something to do with the sacred name? This is brand new material. I want you to pay attention. The word is was. It's 1961 right there in Genesis 1:2. So I started out my search with Matthew 1:21 in the King James. This is how it reads. Thou shalt call his name Jesus. You look it up in the Greek, it's 24:24. Jesus is how you pronounce it in Greek. And it says of Hebrew origin, 3091. And then it goes on to say it's the name of our Lord or our Master. So I looked up 3091, and it says right there in the Strongs, it's Yahushua. I was okay with that. I hope you are too. But it says it's from 3068. Well, that's a Hebrew number, and it also listed 3467, meaning Yahuwah saved, or of course in the Strongs it's going to say Jehovah saved. But I think most of us know that Yahusha, the Son, actually means Yahuwah saved. That's the meaning of that name. So is it probable that a short investigation of sacred name will solve this confusion over the word was? That was my question. So the Greek 2424 said it was from 3091, and then it also says from 3068 and 3467. So let's go look at 3068. It says Yehovah, and there we have 1961. It says it's from 1961. Then it goes on to say the self-existent or eternal Yehovah, and of course that is the Jewish national name for their Elohim. So I went and looked up H1961, and there it is, Haya. It is a primitive root. It says to compare it to 1933, and these are the definitions. The first one, it says to exist. Well, that certainly sounds like Yahuah. Then it says to be or to become, and the third definition lists it as come to pass. But I wanted to look up 1933 because it said to compare it to 1933. So we come down here and it's Hava, and it is a primitive root. Look, everyone, what it's saying. It says compared to 183. I did not put this on the slide today, okay? But it's coming back to 1961. This word number that's connected to the word was. And it means properly to breathe in the sense of existence. That's very, very interesting. Now don't forget, we were going to look up 3467. And over here we have Yasha. It is a primitive root. And I've just put some definitions in bold blue: to defend, deliver, to rescue, to bring salvation, save, savior, get victory. I was going, this sounds like it's all linking back to Yahuwah and Yahusha. But this 1961 is creeping up everywhere. So I just wanted to take a little closer look at 1961. It's Haya. In the Strongs it has the YAH in it, that we know are very important letters in sacred name. And don't forget, the 1933, it means to breathe in the sense of existence. So it seems that it's applying to two definitions. It looks to me that the first definition, to exist, may be applying to Yahuwah the Father, who has always existed. The second definition, to become, seemed to me it was applying to Yahusha, the Son. And we know in John 1:18, the only begotten Son, which is from the bosom of the Father. This was the tabernacle dwelling place that was brought forth so that the Holy Spirit, or the Ruach, could enter that tabernacle dwelling place that had one head, two arms, and two legs. It was that breath. Remember, we had the breath, the sense of existence, that breath that entered this tabernacle dwelling place that was prepared to be the visual Elohim that would one day give the sacrifice. So does it seem like the first two definitions of Haya link back to Genesis 1:1, where we find the creator of heaven and earth, or the Elohim? To me, it looked like the first and second definitions are linking back in context, okay? Not necessarily word number. And we'll just finish up this little section. When you see my little flowers on the slide, you know that we're coming to the end of a section. The third definition of Yahuah in 1961, meaning come to pass or came to be. I believe that Tim used came to be as well. In Genesis 1:2, it says, and the earth came to be without form, void, and there was darkness upon the face of the deep. What I found is that creation in Genesis 1:1 was beautiful, the environment was all ready to go, and then something came to be that was formless, void, and very dark. So it looks as if this third definition seems to align best with the context of Genesis 1:2 when you're looking at context. If indeed 1961's first two definitions link to Yahuah and Yahusha first. So I just want to put that out there for you, just to ponder and think about, maybe for some discussion a little bit later on. Okay, in the second part, we're going to do just a little review of first fruits in case we have some new people that are here with us this week. And we will do a review of this Omer count for 33rd day of the Omer, Lag Ba Omer. What we did was we found that Joshua confirms that the first fruits wave sheaf festival always follows the Passover Sabbath in his book. That was in his story. It was the Passover day on the Shabbat, and first fruits followed the morrow after the weekly Sabbath right there. So first fruits did not follow the morrow after the first unleavened bread Sabbath in Joshua. That was a main point where he was showing you that first fruits always follows the weekly Sabbath, not a feast Sabbath. And the weekly Sabbath has the number of H7676. We also noted in our study last week, or the week before, 2 weeks ago, that the feast Sabbaths in the fall are 7677. Joshua confirms that first fruits follows only the 7676 weekly Sabbath, not the first unleavened bread feast Sabbath. Now this is review. When we looked up the words for the unleavened bread feast Sabbath, we came up with these numbers of 2282, which was Chag. That's actually talking about a feast. 6944 was talking about the holy set-apart day, or the Kadesh day. And 4744 was the number that went with the word convocation. Not one of these numbers is a 7676. And the first Sabbath of unleavened bread is always connected to Abib 15, but it's never ever connected to following a 7676 Sabbath, okay? In fact, unleavened bread doesn't follow a Sabbath at all. It follows Passover, doesn't it? But it's not listed as a 7676 Sabbath. Then we want to look at some biblical Passover placements. We're going to look at Exodus 12 Passover. That was actually on a third cycle of the week. It was actually on a Tuesday. We'll look again at Joshua's Passover. That was on the seventh cycle. Okay, that was a 7676 Sabbath. And we're going to do a little bit of work on Yahusha's Passover. That is on the fourth cycle of the week, or the midst of the week. So what we have found already is that Passover can be on any day of the week. There are some calendars that say that Passover is locked to a certain cycle of the week, but the scriptures don't show that. They show that Passovers can be on any day of the week. We also discovered that the Enoch calendar has the Passover celebration on the third cycle of the week every single year, at least the books of Enoch that I've looked at, about 3 of them. And this cannot be true, because Passover moves, and wherever it is celebrated, that's where you celebrate it. You don't make any provisions to adjust the calendar. Just as a side note, this year in 2018, we have a Tuesday Passover, which is exactly the same calendar as what Moses was using in Exodus 12. and for the second month and the third month of Pentecost. We found that Joshua exposed the false teaching that first fruits has to always be celebrated on Abib 16. And here you can word it just a little bit differently, that the false teaching that first fruits has to always follow the first Sabbath of unleavened bread. These are two counterfeit teachings. And we also found that Joshua shows that the Enoch calendar has first fruits following on the wrong weekly Sabbath. They have, at least the calendars I've seen from Enoch, they have first fruits following the weekly Sabbath that is outside of the Passover festival. And of course, Joshua set the record straight. He said that Passover on that account in Joshua chapters 3 to 5, it had first fruits the very next day. Passover was on Sabbath, and first fruits was the very next day. So it wasn't outside of the Passover festival. Well, I'd like you to hang on to your hats now because we're going to be looking at some calendars. All of the slides have numbers, so if you have a question on any of the slides, we can go back to them. The first one is the Joshua calendar that we looked at. Abib 1 was on the first day of the week, or a Sunday. That put Passover on a weekly Sabbath, and Joshua told us that first fruits was Abib 15. It followed the weekly Sabbath, and first fruits had priority over the Feast of Unleavened Bread. That's what we found in the Joshua calendar. We're just going to compare this to Yahushua's Passion events. In that year when he was crucified, Abib 1 had to be on a fifth cycle or a Thursday. You have your Passover on a Wednesday, Abib 14. You have your 3 days and 3 nights of being asleep, in the sleep of death there, with a resurrection on Sabbath. And first fruits follows right after that. That was his first ascension, or the wave sheep. We'll be coming back to some of these calendars. Again, I have Joshua's calendar here just for a review from the last slide. We're going to compare it to Enoch's calendar that teaches first fruits follows the weekly Sabbath outside of the Passover festival. Now, the book of Enoch that we have looked at, about 3 of them, I know there's more and they all say something different, but this one that seems to be the most popular starts the beginning of the year always on a Wednesday or the middle of the week. That will put your Passover always on the third cycle of the week, which is a Tuesday. You come up to your Sabbath, which would be Abib 18, but they don't have their first fruits on the 19th. They wait till the next week's Sabbath, and first fruits is placed on the 26th of Abib. You may have heard this date flying around the Enoch calendars, Abib 26 as first fruits. And we'll be coming back to this as well. So Abib 26 first fruits definitely will alter the Omer count as well, won't it?
Charlene?
Yes.
Charlene? I would just like to mention for people that have heard of the Zadok calendar, I would just like them to know that the Zadok calendar is pretty well equal to the Enoch calendars in dating, so pretty well the same calendar.
Thank you, Tim. I really appreciate that. Okay. This is going to be a 2-part slide again. Yahushua's passion for Passover and first fruits. You've seen this slide, so I'm just putting it there for your review, that Yahushua had his Passover on the middle day of the week. Okay. Enoch's placement, or Zadok. This is just a review. We have Passover here on a Tuesday. And Passover can be on a Tuesday. Not saying that it can't, but it just isn't for Yahushua's passion. So a third cycle Passover does not fulfill the words midst of the week. That's impossible. And a first fruits on Abib 26 does not fulfill Yahushua's wave sheaf. We'll see more about that later. So this is just a review slide. Let's just pop into looking at the Omer count here for a little bit. The truth about Lag Ba Omer, this is what it does. It marries first fruits to Abib 16 every single year, locking it to the 33rd day of the Omer count, and I'm telling you, this is a counterfeit. And this is what most of the Hebrew roots and the Messianics and a lot of everyday feast keepers have got their first fruits married to Abib 16. And we're going to review a 2015 Christian feast calendar with first fruits married to Abib 16. I just happen to have a 2015 calendar, so, but they do this every single year. And then secondly, there's new information. We're going to compare the Omer 33 count with the Omer 40 count on several different calendars. But let's look at the Christian feast calendar first. We only have 2 slides. This is what their calendar looked like on 2015. And the question is, will the following Christian feast calendar be the same as the traditional Jewish calendar for the 2015 Omer count? And I'm saying traditional Jewish, okay? So we have day 1 of the Omer count is beginning at sunset. That is on Sunday, April the 5th. And first fruits is on the 6th. Now, there was a question last week about they thought we had something wrong on the slides. That's why we're reviewing these 2 slides, because there wasn't anything wrong. But anyway, they start observing first fruits on Sunday sunset, which would be the 5th. Okay? Question number 2 is this. Will day 33 of the Omer count land on Thursday, May the 7th, exactly like the Jewish calendar? And now what we have here, we have the Omer count. They actually counted this as day 1 because that's where it began. So you have your Omer count there, 1 to 7. Then you have 8 to 14, 15 to 21. And this month here counts 22 to 26. Let's go to the next calendar. We'll just continue counting with our dates, our times here, to see if we're going to land at May the 7th. There you have days 27, 28, and on May the 3rd, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. There is your Omer count, number 33, on May the 7th, and that was in 2015, okay? But remember, they begin their day at sunset on May the 6th. We're not talking April 6th and April 5 and 6 up here. We're talking May 6 and 7 here for the Omer 33 count. So that Christian calendar has their first fruits married to Abib 16. Christian feast keepers that follow this Jewish calendar likely do not know that the 33rd day of the Omer count pays respect to the death of the great mystic sage Rashbi, who authored the most famous book of the Kabbalah, ushering in Jewish mysticism. And this is all connected to secret societies. Interesting. Day 33, it's connected to that. Lots of 33s. There's a lot more to this. But the Torah commands of Moses are very, very clear on the placement of first fruits. He said, when Israel enters the land, this is the way you do it. And Joshua fulfilled those commands perfectly and told us exactly when first fruits is to be celebrated. This particular day, the 33rd day, is Zif 18 if you're using Zif as your second month. It is the 33rd day of the Omer count, and it is always counted from Abib 16. So next, we are going to compare the Torah timing of first fruits in comparison to the Lag Ba Omer on these following calendars. There's going to be quite a few. We're going to look at the luni solar calendar that has a Friday Passover. we're going to look at a lunisolar calendar that does a Wednesday Passover. We'll look at Enoch's calendar that does the Tuesday Passover. I added Moses' Exodus 12 calendar in here that I've got a Sabbath Passover there. That's not right. That should be Tuesday. And Joshua has a Sabbath Passover, and Yahuah has a Wednesday Passover. So everybody, in Moses' account, it was not Sabbath, it was a Tuesday Passover. And I edited this so many times and there's still a mistake. But this is what I want you to watch for. On every calendar, we've got 5 of them coming up. We are looking specifically for the 40th day of the Omer count to see if it's going to place on the 27th day of the 2nd month. You're going to see why in a little bit. So I have these all laid out very clearly. We're looking for the 40th day of the Omer count. Okay, the first calendar we're going to look at is a lunisolar calendar. It has a Friday Passover. There's your Friday Passover. And they also do first fruits on Abib 16. They've got first fruits married to Abib 16, and in this one, it just happens to be the day after the weekly Sabbath, so that all looks good, okay? Right there, you have your 18th of Zif. That is the 33rd day of the Omer count from first fruits, which is Lag Ba Omer. And if you do your Pentecost count, I have the Omer count over here in this gray column. But if you do your 50-day count, it is exactly 7 weeks and 1 day. Right there in the 3rd month, Sivan 5. There's your 50th day or Pentecost. But the 40th day of the Omer count does not land on the 2nd month and the 27th day. The 40th day is on the 25th. Just want you to compare these. That's the lunisolar calendar that has a Friday Passover. Let's look at a lunisolar calendar that has a Wednesday Passover, but they still have first fruits married to Abib 16. So here we go. They've got their Wednesday Passover, which is what we believe is correct. 15th of Abib is your first Sabbath of unleavened bread, and there's first fruits on the 16th. First fruits is married to the 16th. Here again is where we have the 33rd day of the Omer count in month number 2. It's down here. We see right here we have our Pentecost count. That is correct if you're using first fruits on the 16th. That's your Pentecost right there. It'll be always on the same day of the week. But the Omer count for day 40 does not land on the 27th day of the 2nd month. It's 2 days off. This is on a lunisolar calendar, Wednesday Passover, with first fruits married to Abib 16. Now, I have a box here. When I did this calendar, I realized what a terrible mistake this is. If you have a Wednesday Passover and you have a Sabbath resurrection, how in the world can you have a first fruits wave sheaf for the Messiah before he is resurrected? That is a question. I'd never even thought about that until I built a calendar. Now, I would like to say something else, and that is when you're working with calendars, do charts, because you will learn so much when you build a chart. If you have the information incorrect, your chart will show you. And if it's right, it'll show you something that you never saw before. So that was something that I had not seen before. So obviously, first fruits cannot be married to Abib 16. Okay, we said we would look at an Enoch calendar, places Passover on a Tuesday, and they have Abib 26 married to first fruits. Over here, there's your 33rd day of the Omer count, which is always counted from the 16th, okay? And they've got their first fruits after the Sabbath, after Your Passover festival is from the 14th to the 21st. They go up to the Sabbath of the 25th, and they place first fruits on the 26th. That's how they get that date. They count their 50 days, and they get to Sivan 15. Now, for any of you that saw the very first presentation that we did back in November, when we did the Exodus 12 journey from Passover to the quail and the manna in the second month, and then to Pentecost in the third month, this here should be ringing a bell for you right now. We'll come back to it in just a second. But we're finding that the 40th day of the Omer count is not on the 27th day of the second month. In fact, with Enoch, the 40th day is landing in the third month. It's like even worse than the others, okay? Even worse. Now, I have a little man here with an exclamation mark at this 15. Because I can't hear any of you, I'm going to tell you. Do you remember when we did Moses and his count between Exodus 12 to Exodus 19 to get to Pentecost? When you get to Exodus 19, it gives you two clues. I think it's in the first verse that it says that they came into the wilderness of Sin on this same day that they left Egypt. Okay, well, they left Egypt right here. They left on the morning of the, I'll get to you, Tim. I think Tim's got a comment. They left on the morning of the 15th. It's very, very clear in Numbers 33:3 when they left, the morning after the Passover. So you only have two options. They either left on the fourth cycle, which was a Wednesday, or they left on the 15th. So your options here for Exodus 19:1 is either the 4th of Sivan or the 15th. Those are your only two options. And we found out in that study that the 8th was the 50th day of the Omer count. I found it very interesting, everybody, that Enoch ends up with Pentecost on the 15th, which was one of the clues that you had to figure out with the calendar puzzle when you were doing the Pentecost dating in Exodus 19. Now that's interesting. So, you know what? Go build these charts, these calendars. You're going to learn a lot. Okay, I hope that my audio is keeping up with my animations. Let's look at Moses' calendar. This is it, the one we're talking about from Exodus 12. His Passover that year was on a Tuesday, okay, because they had to have 3 days to travel to the wilderness, and they crossed the Red Sea on the night of the 17th. That was a Friday night, and they got to the other side safe from Pharaoh's army just as the day was beginning to dawn. So there's your weekly Sabbath, okay? So the Passover had to be on a Tuesday to travel 3 days and then to rest on the Sabbath. First fruits, if they would have celebrated it, I have a typo there, everybody. That should not be 26. It should be 19. Okay, we've got 2 mistakes here already. That's good. First fruits, if they would have celebrated it, would have been on the 19th. But remember, the instructions were that they would not celebrate first fruits until they came into the land. But this would have been the first fruits date for the counting of the Omer. Okay? Right there is our 33rd day of the Omer count that we're dealing with this counterfeit. And down here, as we mentioned on our last slide, Sivan 8 is the date for Pentecost. But the 40th day of the Omer is not on the second month and the 27th day. But look, everyone, it's close. It's right next door. It's very, very close. This is the closest that we've come. Let's see if Joshua has something for us that's interesting. Joshua, he has a Sabbath Passover, and he has a Abib 15 first fruits. For anyone that saw the Joshua study, Passover absolutely was on a Sabbath that year. It tells us that first fruits followed the 7-6-7-6 weekly Sabbath. Okay, so it absolutely follows that Sabbath. That is the 15th. There is the 33rd day of the Omer count in month number 2. It never ever moves. It's always calculated from the 16th. There we have our 50th day for Pentecost is on the 4th of Sivan. But the 40th day of the Omer count is not on the 2nd month and the 27th day. It's removed by 3 days. Okay. All right. Let's look at Yahusha's week, his Passion Week. It was a Wednesday Passover right there. There is your Omer 33rd day count. That is always counted from the 16th. If you count, you're going to have 33 days to there. Got the Omer count on the side here if you need to verify. This would have been Pentecost on the 7th day of the 3rd month, 7th of Sivan. And this is the brand new part. Yahusha's Passover is the only calendar where the 40th day of the Omer count links to the 2nd month and the 27th day, just like we had in Genesis 8:14. And this is the one that pinpoints the one true Messiah. This is the only calendar. Moses didn't do it. Joshua didn't do it. And neither did loony solar calendars with a Wednesday cross or a Friday cross, and definitely Enoch did not do it. This calendar houses the Wednesday crucifixion, the Messianic timeline of 3 days and 3 nights to the resurrection, then the ascension right there on Sabbath after 3 full 24-hour countings, learning to count, and then the wave sheaf on the day after. Okay? Let's take another little look at what we have here. This is brand new information. This is the only calendar that can satisfy all of these requirements. A 4th cycle cross, the 3 days and the 3 nights to give you 72 hours in the sleep of death, the Sabbath resurrection, a 1st cycle wave sheaf, and that houses also the 40th day of the Omer count on the 27th day of the 2nd month, which just happens to be Yahusha's 2nd ascension when he went to heaven for the last time from this earth. So here's the question. Why is the placement of this 40th day so important? Is it something we should look at? And all thanks goes to one of the calendar people that we met through this venue. What is so special about the 27th day of the 2nd month in Yahusha's 2nd year of ministry? Well, this is what was so special. This was the day that he left the earth, where he promised the disciples to wait in the upper room until the 50th day. And it's given there in Acts verses 1, 9 to 11. You can read it when you have time. But they stood there and they watched him go up, taken in a cloud. And again, I'm saying, what was so special? Well, you know what, everybody? That was the exact day that Noah left the ark. It was the same day, the 27th day of the 2nd month, that Yahusha left the earth. It says in Genesis 8:14 to 16, and in the 2nd month, on the 7th and 20th day of the month, was the earth dried, and Yahuah spoke unto Noah, saying, Go forth out of the ark. The prophecy of the ascension on the 40th day of the Omer count, it looks as though it was given to Noah first. Remember that question about Noah I started to ask questions. Would Yahuah place calendar clues in Noah's flood account with alignment to Yahusha 2,300 years before the cross? 2,300? That number should ring a bell because you'll find it in Daniel 8:14. And there is 11 calendar dates that I could find in Noah's account, but today we only looked at Genesis 8:14, the verse that says that Noah leaves the ark on that day. So I'm just wondering if there's something else that's going on with these calendar clues, this calendar language that has something to teach us about Yahusha's ministry and his calendar. So I thought, you know what, this is just like putting candy in a child's hand. This is sweet, you know, something really sweet to think about. And I started to say, are there clues in Noah's flood account that will assist Yahuah's people to verify his covenant calendar? I'm just wondering how many clues that we're going to find from Noah. Consider these two dates in calendar construction. Will Yahusha's Passover in the midst of the week and his ascension on the 40th day of the Omer count be the two golden keys to rebuild the covenant calendar for his full ministry? And I'm talking here about from the cross to heaven in 44 days. And guess what? It's not the number 33. It's the number 44. Calendar considerations. The solid dates of Abib 16 of Abib 14's cross and the 40th day of the Omer lay the framework for Yahusha's 70-week ministry. Those dates are firm. And will those dates confirm his covenant calendar, removing all of the counterfeits that we've been dealing with? Will these two dates give us his whole calendar from water when he was baptized to fire in 70 weeks when he sent the fire for Pentecost? I don't know if all of you know, but the study has been done that his ministry was 70 weeks long, not 3.5 years. That is right, because if Yahusha is going to qualify to fulfill the antitype of Exodus 12, he had to be a lamb of the first year. And the lamb had to be between ages 1 and 2. And so 70 weeks is between 1 year and 2 years. If you have a Messiah that is claiming to have a 3.5-year ministry, you have the wrong Messiah. He disqualifies himself from being the antitype for the Messiah. It's just absolutely incredible. So I know there's a lot of people that are following the 3.5-year ministry. It absolutely is not true. So do you see why the 40th day of the Omer count might be very, very special? And do you see why we're excited? This is something that will have to be studied out in great detail, and it will take a while. But maybe by the time we get to Yahusha's ministry in our calendar studies, we'll have this one figured out. So that's the end of this review presentation, and our next study together for a presentation will be April 20th. We're going to look at the Tekufa Unveiled and how the covenant calendar begins. And if you have any questions about what we've presented here today, turn your mics on, and or you can send an email to us at calendar@TorahToTheTribes. That would be great. And I'm all done.
Charlene?
So if anybody needs to look at some other slides, yes.
Charlene, absolutely outstanding. When I looked at this week, I wondered how you were going to bring this together. The Ruach was on your tongue tonight. You explained this fabulous. It come together very, very well. And for the people that just witnessed this is an outstanding job of investigation and bringing it all together in a short time. Thank you, Charlene, for your work. Incredible.
Incredible. That was awesome.
And on behalf, On behalf of Covenant Calendar Club, for those of you are viewing, we're about to enter into our questions and answers and discussion session. So we want to, again, thank you for watching, invite you to join Covenant Calendar Club to get these PowerPoints and presentations sent directly to you via our weekly emails. And so for now, if we're going to just wave goodbye to you and wish you happy holy days. And we'll see you right after the holidays. Shalom, everyone, and good night.